everyone, it's Chrysanthi from Happy Habitats, California, and today we are going to be answering the question, what is an ecosystem?
The materials that you are going to need for this activity are first the living and non-living things in an ecosystem worksheet and the ecosystem observation activity. And this one has, I think, a total of 4 different pages, and 3 of those pages have pictures of ecosystems on them. You are also going to need something to write with. The vocabulary that you will need to know for this lesson is just one word: ecosystem. The living and non-living things that share an environment and interact. First, we're going to take a look at some different ecosystems. See if you can notice anything that they have in common. We have our desert ecosystem, a rainforest ecosystem, a tundra ecosystem, a lake ecosystem, an ocean ecosystem, a savanna ecosystem, and a forest ecosystem. These are just some ecosystems, but there are so many more. Now, all of these ecosystems were made up of 2 main parts: living things and non-living things. I'm going to pull up this last picture that we looked at of a forest ecosystem. Now would be a good time for you also to get out your worksheet that has living and non-living things in an ecosystem written at the top, so that you can follow along with me. When I write something in one of these columns, it would be a good idea for you to write the same thing in your columns on your worksheet as well. So the first thing that we're going to do now that we have a worksheet is to write our name at the top of the paper. So I'm going to go ahead and write my name up here, and you can write your name on your paper. So, using this forest ecosystem as an example, let's come up with a short list of living things that we might find in an ecosystem. So first, I see lots of different animals. See how many different animals you can see? I see some mammals, like this raccoon and this deer over here. I see some reptile amphibians, like these either tortoises or turtles over here. I see some fish in the water. I see some insects like this dragonfly over here, and a bird up at the top corner. So all of these things are different animals. So the first thing I'm going to write in my living things box is animals, because animals are some living things that we might see in an ecosystem. I also see lots of different plants. Notice how many different plants are in this picture. I see some lily pads in the water. I see some grasses over here. I also see some flowers. These look like little lily pad flowers. And some trees all the way back up here. So the next thing that we are going to write in our box are plants. Because there are lots of different plants in an ecosystem. There are also some living things that we don't see. There's probably some mushrooms, which are a type of fungi, and some small bugs or critters that might be living on these leaves that are so small that they don't show up in the picture and we're not going to be able to see them. But they also count as living things. So I'm just going to add in, sort of to mention all of them, hard to see creatures are also an example of living things that live in an ecosystem. So it looks like we have completely filled up our living things side. In the next activity that we're going to do after this, we're going to go a little more in depth and look at some different types of animals, some different types of plants. that we might see in an ecosystem. But now, let's think of some of the non-living things that we might see in an ecosystem. So in this picture, I see some water down here. And because water is not living, I'm going to add it to our non-living things category. What other non-living things are in this picture? Looks like down here, it might be hard to notice, looks down here that we see some rocks. So there's some rocks down here. I'm going to add rocks in my non-living things category. What else do we see that's not alive? I see some air. This is hard, it's hard to imagine, but there is air that all of these animals are breathing. So I'm going to go ahead and add air as one of the non-living things that is in this ecosystem. What else do we see? It's sort of hard to see because it's underneath this grass, but all of these plants, underneath them is probably some soil. Let's also add soil as one of the non-living things that's in an ecosystem. And there's one more. The tricky part about this one is that it's not actually in the picture, but we know that it's there. That one is going to be the sun. Now we can't see the sun in this picture, and it might be in some of the pictures that we look at later, but the sun is definitely a non-living part of the ecosystem. Super duper important. I'm going to add in sun right there. Awesome. So it looks like we have written down some of the general living and non-living things that we might find in an ecosystem. Now that we have a general list of some living and non-living things in an ecosystem, we are going to get more specific. I would like everyone to pull out their worksheet with pictures of ecosystems on them. One of the pages looks just like this one. I would also suggest, I think it's a good idea for you to get out the worksheet that we just did that had the general list of living and non-living things, because that worksheet might help you follow along and do this page that we're about to do together. So together we are going to take a look at this ocean ecosystem and see what living and non-living things we can identify. This one we're going to do together. Afterward, you can choose one of the other two ecosystems and do the exact same thing that we're about to do. Like all of our worksheets, the first thing that we are going to do is write our name at the top. Oh, there we go. You can also write today's date up there. So the first thing on our general list of living things was animals. So let's see what animals we can identify in this picture. For starters, I see a lot of fish. There's some fish over here, down here, another fish here, some more fish over here. So the first living thing I'm going to write down is fish. Now what are some other living things? We're going to start with the animals here. So what are some other animals we see? I see this orca, or a killer whale. Almost called it a beluga whale. It's a different type of whale. But I'm just going to write orca down here. What other animals do we see? If we look down here, it looks like a stingray. So I'm going to go ahead and add stingray to my list of living things. Awesome. What else? I see some starfish. And believe it or not, starfish are also animals. Pretty cool. Oh. Now, another animal that you might not know about, but I definitely seen this photo, is right here. Looks like some coral. So, sort of crazy, but coral are animals. Which is really, really cool. Whoa. Now, if you see any other animals that I missed, you can go ahead and add those here, but I'm going to move on to some of the plants that I see. So all along this bottom, it looks like some seaweed. So I'm going to go ahead and add seaweed. Are there any other plants that I see? Not really. I'm sort of counting all of these little plants down here as seaweed. But it looks like we've got our living things chart. Now, if you see anything that I might have missed, you can go ahead and add it to our living things category. But right now, I'm going to move on to our non-living things. So let's take a look at some of the non-living things in this picture. I think the most obvious one that we can see is the water that all of these animals are swimming in. So let's go ahead and add water to our list. There also seems to be some sand here at the bottom. Now, although it isn't soil, this is sort of the soil of the sea. So let's add some sand down here. What other non-living things do you see? Looks like there's some rocks over here. And this also might be like a big rock back here. So I'm going to go ahead and add rocks to our list of non-living things. What else do we see? I noticed the sun is all the way up at the top of this picture. It's not really a clear view of the sun, but we still know that the sun is there and there's sunlight coming down on all of the animals. So I'll add sun right there. What's another non-living thing that we are missing? So you might think that there's no air in the ocean, but there is. There's a lot of air. Not only is there air in these bubbles that we see are right here, there is also oxygen in the water that we can't see. So I'm going to add air to my list of non-living things. Now, if you see any non-living things that I might have missed, you can add those, but I think we got them all. So now that we have our list of living and non-living things that are all in this environment together, let's take a look at how they interact. You don't need to write this part down, but we're just going to take a look. So all of these animals up here, they're all swimming in the water. The fish breathe in the air through their gills. The plants, there's some different types of plants over here. They grow out of the rocks and the soil, which are in our non-living category. The plants also turn the sunlight into food. So that's another way these living and non-living things interact with each other. Now, some of the living things also interact with each other. So this orca might get a little hungry and might eat some of these fish. The fish might get hungry and eat some of the plants, or some of the creatures that live on the plants that we can't see. So, as we can see, there are lots of interactions between living and non-living things in an ecosystem. So now that we've looked at this specific ecosystem together, You are going to pick one of the other two ecosystems that are on the same worksheet, either the backyard ecosystem or maybe the woodland ecosystem, and do the exact same thing, naming as many living and non-living things that you can see. Once you've come up with your list of living and non-living things in the picture, you can put them in the chart just like we did with this ocean ecosystem. Over here we have our list of living things and our list of non-living things.
We sure learned a lot about ecosystems. I hope you enjoyed this Happy Habitats California lesson, and I can't wait to keep learning with you.